initiatives to educate voters and enhance electoral transparency, integrity, accountability, and inclusiveness. Guys, join me to welcome the one and only Amina Mayango. Thank you. You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Samson. Good good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good evening, my lord.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. I think is this the first cohort for this year?
Uh,
I think it is, yeah.
yes, yes, it is.
Okay. It's good to be here again, uh, at least for the first time this year. And sadly, I can't stay too long because I have an MDM meeting for around 6. So we'll see what we can do. And yeah, I should try and get this done. Um, sorry. So we're supposed to talk about collation of results, election results, and post-election. And how many people have, how many are we in this class? Okay, we are 59. Okay. Of the 59 of us, how many of us have participated in any elections? Just maybe a thumbs up or something so I can see. Thumbs up. No one has, because I'm not seeing any thumbs up.
Oh, we have more
Or,
than enough. We have more than enough thumbs up.
oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I was looking at the wrong place. Because I'm sharing my screen. Okay, okay. Oh, great, 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 great. Um, of the of the people that have said they've participated or they've experienced elections, how many of us can remember the collation process? Thumbs up again. Okay, I'm seeing more thumbs up. Okay, so I'm going to assume that in this class, there's a lot of experience, yeah, when it comes to elections and by extension, collation, yeah. So I'll just proceed. Now, the thing with election is you can't talk about elections or collation without talking about elections and without talking about the electoral process and without talking about the electoral cycle because everything is collation is part of election is part of the electoral process, the electoral process is part of the general electoral cycle. So what is the electoral cycle? Election experts, you know, do not see election as a one-day event. Yeah, it is not something that happen every 4 years. It is a collect. Instead, it is they see it as a collection of activities that happen round the clock from around the clock around those 4 years. Yeah. So it is not just okay, we voted in in February 2023 and then nothing happened until we're going to vote in January 2027. So for experts, election is not just one day event, it's not just that day that you go, you queue up and you vote. It is a collection of activities that accumulate into that one day. I don't know why my screen is moving by itself. It is a collection of, you know, a lot of days, a lot of activities, that will end up at a particular time. And then the process starts all over again until another time, depending on the country and how long their electoral process is. For Nigeria, we vote and we conduct elections every 4 years. Even states like Osun and Ekiti that have off-cycle elections, the off-cycle elections hold every 4 years. So the electoral cycle is basically the cycle that contains all of these activities, yeah. And for experts, it is divided into three. You have the pre-electoral period where you plan for election, you train, you carry out voter education, you register political parties, you register voters, you recruit staff, you carry out election logistics, security, the budgeting for election, and all those things. I know that recently INEC advertised recruitment, and it's all part, of what's going to happen, all part of what happens in the electoral cycle. Then during the electoral period, which we are actually in the electoral period now, you have things like nomination of candidates. Presently, political parties, I know that political parties are submitting the list, the names of their candidates to INEC. Today, the publication of their affidavit for National Assembly and presidential election was done in all INEC state offices. So if there's any INEC state office close to you and you want to experience what you want to know who the candidates for all political parties, for Senate, for House of Reps, and for president in your states are, you can just walk to the INEC office today, tomorrow, and just look at it, take pictures and all of that, because that's when it's ongoing. It is also during this electoral period that we have campaigns and then voting, and of course, collation of results that we're talking about today. Now, after this electoral period, we have the post-electoral period, which basically means that you look at you review the process. Yeah. So when you're reviewing the process, you are reviewing everything from the pre-electoral period to the post-electoral to the electoral period. Yeah. How, okay, did voter education, was it conducted properly? Did we do well in disseminating information to voters? Were there political parties that were registered? What was the process like? How was the process of voting? How was the process of campaign? How was the process of nomination? Yeah. How was the process of collation during the elections? How was the process and tabulation of results? So the post-electoral period is mainly for review. And when you've reviewed, you know the gaps, then you enter reforms and strategy. You're trying to strategize for the next election. You're trying to reform by either changing laws and improving the laws, or doing a lot of things. Yeah. You're also trying to archive the election results for the last election, and all of that. You create constituencies and all of that. Now, one thing with these three distinct parts of that are divided is that sometimes some activities may just spill into the next one. For example, on a normal day, yeah, recruitment of staff of INEC should have been a pre-electoral thing. But recently we saw that INEC is recruiting new staff, yeah, during this electoral period. There are also so INEC has been issuing press statements about political parties that are wanting to be registered and all that. And of course, things like training will always enter every part, because for most organizations that do elections, training of staff never stops. Yeah. For example, even up to December, we're going to have INEC training ad hoc staff that are going to participate in the January elections. So now that we've understood what the electoral cycle is, I'm assuming we've understood. If you have not understood, please kindly drop a question in the chat box and I'll get to it when I see it. Now that you've understood what the electoral cycle is, it is also one other very important thing that you need to understand is that election doesn't just happen in a vacuum. The electoral process, the electoral cycle doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It is guided by laws, it is guided by rules, that exist. Yeah. And the body of laws and rules that make up um that guide the conduct of elections, that guide the conduct of every activity under the electoral cycle is called the election legal framework. And for Nigeria, we have diverse group of laws that actually fall under this. You can have, you know, upward of over 20 laws. Like if you're going to actually do a proper research about election legal framework, like there are so many laws that make up this framework. But for the purpose of this class, we're just looking at three, so I don't confuse you. Yeah. And I think the most important law when you're talking about the election legal framework is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, which has been amended. Did someone say something? Okay. So we're looking at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which has been amended quite a number of times. Yeah. And why is the Constitution so important in our conversation about the election legal framework? And why did I put it first? Why is it part of this framework? And it is simple. It is because in Nigeria, the Constitution is like the number one law where every other law that exists in Nigeria takes its validity from. Yeah. So it is under the Constitution that when you pick up your constitution. I don't know how many people have read the constitution and how many people have not. But for those who have picked up the constitution, I don't know if you remember when you pick up your constitution, the very first part of it says we the people. Yeah. Even though, yeah, I know that it is not we the people that gave ourselves the constitution, but it is assumed that it is we the people. So basically, the constitution is our collective will. It was created by our collective will to give ourselves this law that will guide every aspect of our life as a nation. Yeah. So it is in the constitution that you'll see that, okay, we've agreed that Nigeria will be a democracy first. That is the first thing, that Nigeria would be a democracy. That Nigeria will have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And that each of these arm of government has its own functions. So it is under the constitution that the constitution says the legislature will make laws, for the good governance of Nigeria. It is also under that constitution that INEC as an organization is created to conduct elections, to register political parties, to conduct voter education, to do this, to do that, to conduct referendums and all of that. Yeah. It is also under the constitution that qualification for who becomes INEC chairman, the qualification for who becomes the resident electoral commission of INEC, and the national commissions are outlined. It is also the constitution that gives INEC its powers to make subsidiary legislation. We'll come to that later. It is also the constitution that says, oh, judges can sit on election petitions. It is the constitution that creates election petition. We'll also come to that much later in this class. It is the constitution that says these are the qualifications to contest governorship, to contest president, to contest National Assembly, to contest State House of Assembly. Yeah. It is all the constitution that gives this power. So you can say, with all these things that I'm listing that the Constitution has done, you cannot do without the Constitution in elections, because everything that is needed for elections was first mentioned in the Constitution. Now, remember, I said that the Constitution grants the National Assembly the powers to make laws. And because the Constitution says you can make laws for the good governance of Nigeria, the National Assembly decided, okay, the constitution is not very clear on how INEC will go about all these things that the constitution has said INEC should do. So let's make a law that breaks these things down. So they decided to create the Electoral Act 2026. Before the 2026 Act, we had the 2022, then we had the 2010, then 2006, I think, and going back. So what does the Electoral Act do? The Electoral Act basically breaks down the powers that are already contained in the Constitution that was granted to INEC, what INEC is supposed to do. It sets up INEC fund, the Constitution says INEC will get its funding from, directly from the Federation at first charge. Now the Electoral Act goes ahead and say, okay, there shall be an INEC fund whereby all those monies are put inside and all that and all that. Because the Electoral Act also provides that, okay, since the Constitution says INEC will register political parties, this is how INEC will register the political parties. This is how it will go about it. Okay, INEC is supposed to conduct elections. This is how it goes about conducting elections. Basically, the Electoral Act breaks down all those things that INEC is supposed to do into actionable, parts. Yeah. Remember, I mentioned earlier that the Constitution gives INEC the powers to make subsidiary legislation, that's to make rules and regulations that guide its conduct. And because of those powers, INEC makes diverse regulations, and guidelines, has issued so many guidelines. INEC has guidelines on registering of political parties, guidelines on nomination of candidates, guidelines on, all basically everything that INEC is supposed to do. And above all, regulations and guidelines for the conduct of elections, which basically further breaks down the process for voting, the process for collation of results, the process for transmission of results, announcement of results, and all that. Basically, everything that happens on election day. Yeah. So, is there anyone that I have confused? Or can I continue? Anyone? Even if you give me thumbs up if I should continue. Okay. All right then. Ibrahim Umar said I should continue. Mm. So, we've talked about all this. I've given you the introduction. So let me get to why we are here today. What is collation? We heard about collation. The collation. They finished voting and they went for collation and the result changed, What is collation? Basically, collation of results is a very, very important aspect of, election day administration. For me, it is probably the most important election administration activity. And this is because even when voting goes very well, if the collation process is not well managed, you end up having a lot of issues in the election. When you see a lot of cancellation on the election results, when you see all those things, you end up having issues. Yeah. So, okay. So, what is collation? Simply put, collation is the tabulation or summation of votes cast at an election. Sorry, I'm trying to remove this thing because I cannot see cannot see the rest of my screen. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, collation is the tabulation or summation of vote cast at an election. So, what do we mean by collation? For those of us that said they've participated in the electoral process, I know that at some point, you saw when after voting has been done, ballot papers are sorted, and then they are counted, and each party's votes are identified and then written on a particular sheet called the results sheet. Yeah. That results sheet now will now be taken as it is from that polling unit to the next level, which is the registration area. And all results from all polling units in that ward are taken to one place, and then they are entered into a new result sheet for that particular process. That is basically what collation is. So for collation, you are aggregating every vote, every result for each political party with the aim of getting the person that scores the highest number of votes. And so you can declare the person the winner of that election. And for collation to be said to be credible, for us to say that a collation process is credible, it must be transparent, yeah. And that is why, for it to be transparent, that is why you have journalists that are allowed to enter into a collation center. You have election observers, you have party agents, so that it's in the open. Yeah, it's in the open and people can see what is happening. It must also be accurate. And the reason why I say accurate is because, I mean, if somebody is calculating 10 plus 10 and the person says it's 500, yeah, and the person insists that it is 500. I mean, I know what I'm doing, it is 500. Can you say that that process is accurate? No, because 10 plus 10, everybody knows that 10 plus 10 is not 500. So collation must be accurate. Sorry, I'm seeing some okay. Oh, okay. It's the thumbs up. I thought there were additional questions. And you must be able to verify um the results that come out of a collation process. It must be verifiable. So it could be that, okay, collation is done and then there's an extra, there's result sheets. During collation, you issue result sheets, copies of the result sheet to persons that are present there, especially the police, who are the main election security agency, party agents, and also you know, you leave a copy that will go to the next level. So you must be able to verify a result during collation. Also, collation must be fast. I remember during the 2022 general elections that the INEC announced election results at night. And when they did, it became problematic because people kept saying, why would they announce election result at night? What kind of witchcraft is that? Why did INEC, decide to announce election results at night? The the reason why could be that INEC is working with the principle that collation must be fast and timely. Yeah, that okay, leaving it for the next day without, I mean, if the person that is the collation officer decides, okay, I want to carry this result to my house, I'll come back the next day and continue collation. I'm sure a lot of us will have a problem with it. Me, I will personally have a problem with it. That is because I understand how the process works. Yeah. So collation must be fast. It must be done fast. But of course, accurately. Yeah. Just because you are doing it fast doesn't mean you should start making unnecessary mistakes. Yeah. And also, it must be secure, and the process must be surrounded by integrity. And this is because if any of you has ever gone to a collation, you see the kind of security that surrounds that place. In fact, for presidential elections, Nobody beyond election observers, beyond can enter a collation center. In fact, even INEC staff cannot enter a collation center anyhow during a presidential election. In fact, even outside presidential elections, even outside presidential elections, other elections, INEC staff, just because if you are not an INEC staff on that election duty, you cannot enter the collation center anyhow. And then there must be chain of custody. What do I mean by that? For those who have followed the electoral process, the voting process before, you know that when a presiding officer at the polling unit carries that result sheet from the polling unit, he doesn't give it. In fact, a lot of times you see them with that their bag. If you like, if he wants to go and pee, he will carry that bag and go and pee. Yeah, he will carry it like that in that bag until he gets to that first level of collation, which is the ward level, and he hands it over to the person he's supposed to hand it over. That's when he relaxes. And then that person from that ward too, going to the local government and level of collation, will carry that results by himself and take it to the next level. Now, we are talking about instances where collation is manual, though the new Electoral Act says that collation should be done, transmission of results should be done through electronic means. So, but INEC is yet to implement that. We'll probably start the implementation in Osun State in about 2 weeks. Yeah, but the way it used to be done, even as at when we did the Ekiti election and other elections in recent times, even the general elections in 2022, you carry the physical result sheet from one level to the other of collation. And then public confidence. You must have public confidence. The public must see the process as transparent, as accurate, as consistent, as secure, as having integrity. They must see that the election results was carried from one level to the other without branching to go and eat, or without branching to go and greet your friend or something. Yeah. So these are some of the principles that should guide the collation of results. Okay. So what are the levels of collation? If you're calculating results from one level to the other, what does it mean? Does it mean that from polling unit you can just carry the result and come to Abuja and say, oh, take the result to this is it, carry all the results like that from the over 107 something thousand polling units, just carry it like that from there to Abuja and submit? No, that's not how it's done. So for presidential elections, yeah. I wish I had water. Okay, I don't have water. So I can't get up to get water. So for presidential elections, yeah. Should we start with presidential elections? Okay, let's start from the basics. Yeah. I mentioned that after the presiding officer calculates results at the tabulates, identifies results for each political party, calculates for each political party, and gets a figure for each party. He writes it into the result sheet. And then he carries that result. Whenever you hear me say registration area, it's basically me saying word, because they are the same thing. Yeah. So I'll be calling them interchangeably so you don't get confused. I try to stick to one, but sometimes I just. So the presiding officer takes that result to the very first level in every election in this country. The first level of collation is the registration area or the ward. Yeah, that's where results from the polling units get to first. So he takes the results on that result sheet that he has entered the form EC8A. He takes it and he hands it over to the registration area collation officer. That one also has his own version of form EC8, and he writes into it all the results from all the polling units under that ward. He imputes it in that place. and calculate, get the figures right. And then he will also carry that result. I'm talking about how it used to be, how it was done before the new electoral act. Yeah. So even with the new electoral act, even if electronic transmission is going to be electronically, it will still pass from one level to the other, to the other, to the other. Well, I don't know how INEC wants to do it, but basically that should be it. Yeah. So from that registration area now, he will take all the results from the polling units, add them to that registration area result sheet, carry it from there, and head to the local government. So if it is an election for area councils, like the way FCT, for those who are in Abuja and voted during the area councils election, if it's an election for area councils, for councillors, the registration area is the last level of collation. Remember that councillors are representatives for every ward. Yeah. So for councillors, the collation will end at the ward level. Now, if it is for chairmanship, they will take all the results from different wards to the local government, and then they will tabulate in a fresh result sheet for the local government. And for election into area councils where chairmanship position is being contested, the local government will be the final level of collation. Now, for people that are contesting for State House of Assembly, in some instances, one local government makes up what do you call it, makes up a constituency. So in that instance, the collation ends at that local government. But in instances where the local government is made of like maybe two local governments, then there will be another level of collation, which will be the state assembly constituency level. This also happens the same for House of Representatives. I hate calling House of Representatives. Please, it is House of Representatives. This federal constituency, I didn't say Federal House of Representatives. I said federal constituency level. In bracket, House of Representatives. I hate when people say, call it Federal House of Representatives. I don't know why we don't have a State House of Representatives. So I don't know why you're calling it Federal House of Representatives. So for those of you that your cousins and uncles are contesting, please go and tell them it is not Federal House of Representatives. I digress. Now, it also applies to House of Representatives, that if a House of Reps constituency that has like 4 local governments, yeah, the results from the different local governments will come together at the constituency level collation, and then all of them will be collated. The winner will be declared, and returned. The same for senatorial election. Now, for governorship election, there's a bit of this thing. From the local government, you go to the state constituency collation straight. So, because you know that for a governorship election, the whole state is the constituency. So, results from all the local governments in that state, let's say for Osun now, there are 30 local governments. All the 30 results will come to the state collation center, where the local government election results will be collated into a result sheet, and then the person with the highest vote is also declared winner and returned. Of course, if the person also gets to third of a majority of votes into thirds of the state of the local government in that state, yeah. Then for presidential election, it goes a step further from governorship elections, meaning that you take all the results from each of the states for president and you take it to the National Collation Center, which all of us used to watch on TV every 4 years. Yeah. So you cannot carry polling unit results from polling unit and say, COPA cannot say, I'm taking these results to Abuja to go and submit. No, it is collated at different levels until you get to the state. Then from the state, all the results from the state are now brought to Abuja for presidential elections. If you did not understand, please ask a question in the chat box. Now, like I mentioned earlier, just because you're an INEC staff or you're a politician or you're even a security person, just because you're all that does not mean anybody will allow you into a collation center. I know in practice, there's practice that, you know, people just enter collation center because, well, if a collation officer says he'll say something, they can beat him there, yeah, because it's not his locality. But ideally, these are the people that are supposed to be allowed into a collation center. One, INEC officials on election duty. Election duty. So randomly, if I'm an INEC staff and I'm in my house, I just say, they're doing collation close to my house, so that school close to my house. Let me go and see what's happening. Nobody is supposed to allow me enter that collation center, yeah. Or a random police officer that is just strolling and he sees a no. Only security agents that are on election duty that have their tags are supposed to be allowed into collation centers. Candidates or their accredited agents. So if you are not an agent, even if you are the candidate's cousin, you are not supposed to enter election if you are not a collation center, if you are not accredited as a party agent. Accredited media are also allowed into collation centers. In fact, sometimes this one is also a bone of contention because, and even observers, because sometimes observers will go to collation center and they will have to start dragging with the security because nobody wants to allow them into, a lot of times I've had to report to INEC this issue, of not allowing observers and the media into collation center. So with elections, yeah, there are lots of, okay, yeah, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, until election day comes and then the craziness starts. So, how do we safeguard and strengthen collation? We've talked about how collation is done manually. We've talked about how the Electoral Act now says that collation and transmission of results, especially transmission, is a very important aspect of collation because it is how results can move from one stage to the other. And the Electoral Act now says that you should use technology to transmit results. So, how do we strengthen collation? We use technology, yeah. Technology, the appropriate technology is always good, to introduce technology for some aspects of the electoral process. I know, and I am of the opinion that it is not every time that you use technology, because technology, if you don't deploy it properly, and if it is not trusted technology, it may cause you more problems than when you don't even use at all. Yeah, there are a lot of African countries that don't even deploy technology in their election or coalition, and they have fairly credible elections. And the funny thing about technology is that the more an electoral process is not trusted, the more citizens call for the use of technology. It's usually like that. I mean, there are countries in Europe that don't even use technology, but you won't hear their candidates saying that elections were rigged. But in Nigeria, everywhere you turn and you ask an average Nigerian, how do we improve our electoral process? Say, let's vote online. Let's vote, So it's usually like that, where there is trust deficit in an election, there is more call for the use of technology. Then we could have a public dashboard for real-time results sharing. We have the IREV, yeah, we have the IREV, but the IREV is still not that standard. For those who have maybe followed South African elections, that's the kind of thing that we should be thinking. That results at the polling units, as it's being announced, it's being imputed into the dashboard and people can see it in real time online. It's very impressive what the South Africans do with their election results. Then we should have audit trails and duplicate forms. So if we're using technology to transmit, to collate, we should also have backup, yeah, of physical forms. I think the Electoral Act says that where technology fails, then we should resort to manual. That's not the kind of thing I would have thought should happen, but well, that's what the law says now. Then, of course, there should be independent observation and monitoring. Thankfully, Nigeria allows for election observation. A lot of domestic and international bodies deploy observers to the field during elections. And of course, there should be a provision for legal redress under the laws. And our laws also provide for legal redress. We have the election petition tribunals, which activate like 30 days before elections, so that when you have a problem with any part of the elections, you can approach the court for redress. Challenges. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay. Okay. So, challenges. Mm. What are the challenges? The challenges we face: election malpractice, where results are changed, where people are pursued with stick, where where people come and steal election material, all of this form election malpractice, and is a major challenge in our elections. Interference by stakeholders. I don't know if any of you remembers that time that this professor said that he was threatened to write a particular result. I don't know if you remember. I think it was in 2022 or earlier, 2023 or earlier, that a professor said that he was. Yeah, it was really Ataye Rujega that he said he couldn't see the result well, because he was threatened to basically write that result. Yeah. And then, well, misuse or inappropriate technology. In 2023, we had IREF, but one of the problems that IREF faced, in fact, IREF faced a lot of problems, but some of them included, results that were uploaded on IREF were not clear. And some of the coppers didn't even know what they were uploading. You see, if you went through those result sheets during 2023 elections, you see some IREF results with people's pictures on it. You see one is sleepers, one is one random thing, yeah. So people did not know how to use the technology. And also, people, there were a lot of complaints about IREV, results were not uploaded completely, and stuff like that. So when you don't get the appropriate technology to use, you tend to run into problems. Then I said oversight functions of INEC. INEC is one big organization. While it has monitors in the field, INEC does not have monitors in every polling unit, in every collation center at the same time. So because of this, you see that there are some gaps, in this place, in that place, and all that. But this is what the use of an appropriate technology will cure, because at that point, INEC will not need to have monitors to see that, okay, the result from somewhere in Katsina has been uploaded on a dashboard, for example, for everyone to see. What are my topic says I'm supposed to talk about collation and I'm supposed to talk about post-election activities. So after elections, there are basically two other activities that happen here. One of them is issuing of certificate of return, but to those who won the election. Sorry, I still left section 72 of the Electoral Act 2022. That was a mistake. It's now 2026. Issue of certificate of return. This basically, you have to provide. I mean, if you graduate from a school, they used to give us certificate now. Hey, and if somebody wins an election, there must be something to show that the person has won election. So that's why the law says you issue the winner, the person that has been declared and returned winner, with a certificate of return within 14 days of the declaration. So if election holds like today, by August 15th, you should have issued the person that won with a certificate of return. Another thing that happens after election are the election petitions. Remember, I said something about being able to go to court. Now, there is no credible electoral process that will not include litigation as a method of dispute resolution, or there must be a dispute resolution mechanism that people who contest for the election, people who participate in the process, can approach the court and seek redress. And for election, for people who lost an election, the only way to challenge that election result is through the election petition tribunal. And usually the tribunals come live 30 days before the election, and their registries open 7 days before election. For presidential elections, the Court of Appeal is the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. I know all of us followed it the last time. And from there, you can appeal directly to the Supreme Court. For governorship elections, we have Governorship Elections Tribunal. And election tribunals basically are a creation of the Constitution. I think I mentioned a bit of it. They're a creation of the Constitution, and the Constitution creates how they are to operate and all of that. Yeah. And it is usually set up by the president of the Court of Appeal. Yeah. And then you have the National and State House of Assembly Election Tribunal, who also sit to hear petitions that happen from the National Assembly and State House of Assembly elections. So all these are created by Section 285 of the Constitution. Election tribunals, you can't just wake up like 50 days after you lost election and say, I want to go and I want to go and file my election petition. The way they will throw it out. So you have to file your election petitions like 21 days. And this, see, unlike other cases, yeah, election petitions are sui generis. The court has said that they are in a league of their own. They are so unique. They are not civil cases and they are not criminal cases. They are a mixture of both, and they are none of that. Yeah. So because of that, you cannot, on a normal day, if you do not file papers in court for a normal case, you can approach the court and beg the court and say, please, so allow me file, please, so in the interest of justice, so I beg, that kind of thing. For election petition, you can't do that. Once your 21 days have passed, it has passed. You cannot beg the court to allow you file. In fact, if you file, that's a legit ground to throw it out. I'm not even sure the registry will even collect it, sha. But yeah, that is that. And then a National and State House of Assembly tribunal consists of a chairman and 4 members. For governorship, it is a chairman and 2 members. All chairmen and members of both tribunals are judges of High Court, Federal High Court, Sharia Court of Appeal, Customary Court of Appeal. Then the tribunal shall deliver judgment within 180 days from the date of filing of the petition. Appeals from each tribunal shall be heard within 60 days. So appeal either from the tribunal to a Court of Appeal or from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court must be heard within 60 days. The Court of Appeal is the final court for appeals emanating from the National and State House of Assembly Election Tribunal, while the Supreme Court is the final court for governorship and presidential election tribunals. There was something I wanted to add, maybe, so I wanted to add a bit of my opinion. This 180 days and 60 days, I personally feel like those processes are so long, because what are you doing, in 6 months? Why? It's so long, in my opinion. We shouldn't have such a protracted timeline for hearing election petitions. In other countries, for those who have participated in elections in other countries, election disputes are resolved. So, in fact, in Francophone Africa, you have provisional election results. So the election result is not, permanent until the Constitutional Council has stamped it and said, okay, this is the final result. And they do that after they've heard disputes. For a lot of times, within a week, within 2 weeks, they've stamped the provisional election results as permanent, because, well, the dispute, they've heard it and they are done with it and it's done. Yeah. And in Nigeria, we give it like 6 months, and I think it is unacceptable, really. I think I've run through my slides, so let me get your questions and then we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Nobody has questions. Okay, let me stop sharing so I can see your hands and okay. Thank you so much everyone for listening. Um oh, okay. I have questions. I thought I didn't have questions, so that I'll end it. Okay, Tunde, please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for this. Just a quick question. I can't remember what the law was, but there was something in relation to that people were protesting against. Was it in relation to people? If you destroy the papers, then it. I can't remember what the law was, but they said even if papers are destroyed at the election, what that it does not count. That does not automatically mean candidates are disqualified. Um, can you remember that law? I'm just trying to, because I heard about it and I'm just trying to clarify what it really meant.
I don't know what law, what destruction
No,
of paper.
there was something about it that you can't disqualify candidates if there's any discrepancies. But I'm just trying to clarify, like what happened before, where people were like manipulating papers in, I think, in the last election, um, and yet they were not. I think they were not punished. So I can't remember what it is, but I've been searching for it. But I know that there was something that was a bit of an issue in relation to the new law that's coming up with the ongoing elections. And another thing also, do you think it's right for the president to appoint the director general of INEC or chairperson of INEC, or do you think it should be an independent person?
Woo! Okay. So I don't have a problem with the president appointing the INEC chairman. It's not something I have a problem with. And that is because we tend to act like, like Nigeria is such a special case where that is the only place that it happens, yeah? But it is not. In Ghana, the president appoints the electoral commission chair. In the Gambia, the same thing. Yeah. In fact, in some francophone African countries, the minister of interior serves as an election. Because the election for francophone, some countries in francophone Africa, the election are conducted. They have an election body, and then that basically deals with matters of policy and all that. Then the Ministry of Interior is all the one that conducts the elections. So there's nothing special about the president appointing the INEC chairman. Yeah. The problem with Nigeria is it looks weird or whatever is because we have captured institutions. That's the problem. Our institutions are so politicized, yeah, that you see somebody um trying to get this thing from the president. Oh, I recently I was watching a convocation of the University of Nigeria in Suka, and the vice chancellor just went on and on and on praising the president. This is the academia. Yeah. Why are you kissing? Sorry, pardon my use of. Why are you kissing this much ass? You're a professor. Why are you going on and on and on about the president? Oh, I mean, it was remaining for him to say, "Oh, all hail, you know, all hail Tinubu." And that's the problem with Nigeria. There's nothing special about the president, you know. I
But
don't
that
have a problem
was the problem in Ghana, because I know Ghana, they had to
for
sack
it.
that lady. The lady had to be sacked
Yeah,
because
but
she was
it wasn't
aligned to the
because the
former
president
government.
appointed her. And that woman conducted their last election, their EC chairman, and it was certified credible by observers. So the issue is not that this person is appointed by the president. The issue is that we have a problem with weak institutions. And if we are to say, okay, so who do we want to appoint? You hear people say, they should give it to NJC, the National Judicial Council, to appoint. And I laugh because, okay, I'm a lawyer, so I can't say anything, but I laugh. Or you say, oh, let's get civil society organizations, to come together and agree on one person. Have you seen some of the civil society organizations in this country? Ah, so it's not, the problem is not that the president appoints. So I do not have a problem with the president appointing the INEC chairman. No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay, let me check the. Somebody said INEC is a joke. I know a couple of INEC staff who do nothing before the election season starts. They hardly even go to the office. Aren't they supposed to be using the years they have the election to improve the electoral? Oh my God. Okay. So I have another question. Let me just move on from that one. It says, I saw a memorandum that the use of the title barrister should not be used again. The reason was not stated. Please, do you have an idea about the reason? Okay. Are you a lawyer? If yes, there are Supreme Court judgments that say barrister is not a proper title to be used. It's not a proper title. You're a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. I don't see anybody appending solit in front of their names. Yeah. Nobody does that. But they pick the barrister part of it and append it to their names. So it's not a proper title. It's a description of qualification that you get when you are called to the Nigerian bar as a barrister and a solicitor of the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court that says it's not a proper thing to use. You cannot use barrister. So that's basically it. Yeah. Yeah, Bilkis, I agree with you. It goes down to us holding institutions and persons accountable. But we're even doing a really bad job of doing that. Because at the that is why classes and courses like this are important to show you that, well, as a citizen, just because you love a leader doesn't mean you can't hold them accountable. Yeah, you can love a leader and still hold the person accountable. And Nigerians are doing a very poor job of holding their institutions accountable. Mercy, please go ahead.
I thank you very much. My question is towards diaspora voting. I know that even when this new electoral act was being um, discussed, it was one of the issues that came up. I wanted to know your opinion on diaspora voting. If you think it's something, I don't even know how to frame this question because I don't, I want to say if you think it's something we're ready for. I really don't know what we're ready for here. But yeah, what are your thoughts on diaspora voting? Will it increase um, voter engagement, citizenry for people in the diaspora? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so funny thing, I wrote a paper, I think last year, a policy paper, a policy brief on diaspora voting, and I was making a case for that diasporans to be allowed to vote, and I still think that diasporans should be allowed to vote, but I don't have any hope that it will be any different from what. I mean, have you heard some people in diaspora having conversation about politics and elections? It is disgraceful, especially those who actually live in countries that actually work. So while my reason for wanting diaspora voting is that, I mean, people in diaspora contribute so much economically to our to Nigeria, so they should be allowed to make decisions about who governs, about what happens in the country. Yeah, but that is the extent to which I think I have any this thing about diaspora voting. I do not think it will probably increase the numbers a bit, and that's basically it. But I do not think all of a sudden diaspora Nigerians in diaspora have um some special this thing to make governance much better for the rest of us. They a lot of them are as ignorant as people who also vote in Nigeria. You basically get the same kind of voters. Yeah, so yeah, diaspora voting, I am for it. And I think Nigeria is ready for diaspora voting. I mean, it doesn't take, I mean, if Senegal, people in Senegal can vote in the diaspora, if Benin Republic allows its candidates, citizens to vote in the diaspora, if all these small African countries all over the place are allowing their citizens to vote in diaspora, I see no reason why Nigeria can't. We have what they call them, we have embassies across the world in almost every country. Yeah, so we can make do with that. We can start from there, create polling units in those places, get our citizens, now that citizens can even register online completely. Why not? We should have our people vote in the diaspora. I don't have a problem with it, but I also do not have, I'm not holding so much hope that it will just change things, because it won't. Thank you very much. Uh Let me see. Oh yes, Isaac, I agree with you that we should we should be able to hold government accountable for promises made during elections. And this, honestly, I sometimes I feel overwhelmed with the non-action by citizens. Yeah, but that's why you guys are taking this course. That's why you're there. You can make, you can you can reach people within your sphere of influence. You can do voter education, you can do civic education, you can teach people within your sphere of influence, your networks, what an active citizen should be doing. Yeah, so maybe if the electoral college continues this in the next maybe 10 years, you have like 2 million people who have come out of this course. Who knows, maybe we'll have a more active citizen, we'll have a more participatory citizenship. I don't know, maybe. Any other questions, please? Okay, this is the first class that only two people are asking me questions. So.
Yeah, your flow was clear.
Ah,
It was insightful.
my flow was
So
not
I
anything, though. Better ask questions. So.
and then maybe in the course of your teaching, you've attempted to pose question and
Probably.
yeah. I think if you still have enough time, you said you were going to sign off by 6, we can do another 5 minutes of prep talk and see if some
I
other questions
promise I
spring up.
can answer
You can walk
question. I
us
can
through
give.
your personal stride. You,
Hey, hey.
you can walk us through your personal stride, what you are up to lately, so you can further inspire us while we wait for further questions. Thank you.
What I've been up to lately. I mean, my life revolves around elections, really. Honestly, I don't do anything outside elections. I mean, my life revolves around elections, around working in elections, trying to get people to participate, trying to get voters to participate, trying to, give knowledge like this in spaces like this, physical spaces, online spaces. That's basically what my life is.
Thank you. I think we have Tunde and Kimfola Jimmy. Tunde, you have the mic,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, sorry, quick question. There was a case about the BVC card, PVC cards that people had to, is it get new ones or um I can't remember what it was, but there was quite a shout about it and people are upset. Can you enlighten us more on that?
Oh, okay. About verification. No,
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
INEC postponed that. It will no longer hold now. Probably will hold after the 2027 elections. So we'll be expected to verify our PVCs after the elections or something, because between then and now, a lot of people have died, a lot of people have, I don't know, have married. Well, a lot of people have died, and it's very difficult to prove that somebody has died. So INEC wants people to verify their registration, but that will be done after the elections, not now. So your PVC is valid for voting for the 2027 elections as it is now.
And do people have, so for the next election, do you have to get another set of PVC cards?
No,
Because
you have your other PVC, yeah?
no, I don't live in the country, so I'm not
Oh,
100% with it. I live in
but
diaspora.
are you registered though?
No, I'm not. I don't live there. I don't live in Nigeria. So that's
I
why I'm
am now.
asking.
So why are you asking me now?
Because it's something I'd like
So
to.
you did not even bother registering.
No.
Wow. So all this registration, the INEC has begging people to register
Because
since.
if you live in the diaspora, you can't vote, can you? Unless you come home.
You can't vote, but at least you should be registered, so that what if you just enter Nigeria small in January or December? I said, let me just wait small and vote. You will have been able to vote.
Okay, until then I will.
You can't register again now.
Okay. Um,
Thank you, Tunde. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for not asking me plenty questions.
Okay.
I appreciate you very much. Um, looking forward to, I don't know what I'm looking forward to, but thank you very much. And I hope that at the end of this course that you'll have gained additional information on what collation is, what the law says about different things, and what happens after elections. I wish you all the best in your remaining classes. Good luck, take care of yourself, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend as well. Thank you.
All
We are
right.
always grateful.
Thank
Thank you, man.
you.
All right.
Thanks so much. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And now that the class has ended, I really want to believe we we got the most of the class, and I'm surprised about the number of questions that came after the teaching. Hopefully, we are all well equipped from that session. And going forward, would really love to see a more participatory and interactive class and participation from every participant going forward. Until tomorrow, we reconverge for the last class of the week. I want to wish you all a nice Saturday evening, and I remain your moderator, Samsudin Salanko Adeshino Ayo. You hear from me again tomorrow. Have a nice evening.